So in this video I'm talking about living in the city over 60. So this is Manchester in the north of England. And from here it might look like any other modern city across the world, but it isn't. In fact, it's an ancient city, with there having been settlements here since before Roman times. It was the first and the largest industrial city, so playing an enormous role in the Industrial Revolution. But it has suffered too. It was badly damaged in the Blitz during the war, and then bombed again in 1996, and yet again in 2017. After each one of those events, Manchester came back bigger, better, brighter and stronger than before, as did its people. More recently, of course, Manchester suffered the quiet streets of COVID, but it's coming back. And again, it's coming back bigger, better and brighter than before. Now, I know this because I'm happy to say that for the last 3 years, Manchester has been my home. So when our kids flew the nest, like many of you, I guess, we decided we needed to sell our house. It was far too big. And it's quite a long story, and I've talked about it in the video before, so if I can, I'll put a video. So before buying a new one, we decided to experience city living, and we rented an apartment in Manchester, which was the closest city to us and one that we'd frequented a lot, the restaurants and theatres and so on, and thought we'd like to experience living there for a while. Well, when we told friends, they told us we were crazy, offering comments such as, "It isn't safe to be in the city," "People in the city are crazy," "Renting is dead money," and "Anyway, you're too old to be doing this now." Oh my goodness me, too old to be doing this now. Well, I must admit, if you Google or put in the search bar of YouTube, "living in Manchester City," all of the responses you get will be from young people. And there's a reason for that, I think. It's simply because that in the vicinity we have 3 universities. And so obviously lots of young people are interested in living in the city, living in Manchester City. But to say you're too old, let me tell you, the best time to live in the city, I think, is when you are, let's say, over 55. Why is that? Because you've got everything, absolutely everything on your doorstep. And we have loved every minute of it. We've loved every minute of it, and I'll talk more about it. We listened to what everyone had to say, but we decided to tip the bucket anyway. And if you don't know that term, I'll leave a link down below for you to learn about that. I'll be talking about tipping the bucket again sometime soon. So we did rent the apartment, and we talked about just renting for 12 months just to experience the city, and then we would move on. 3 years down the line, we are leaving, but I promise you, neither one of us wanted to leave. We have both been loathed to leave the city. Now, Manchester, and I know there's lots of lovely cities around the world. There's one close by where you live. But for me, Manchester is obviously close to my heart. And let me tell you why. It is an ancient city with settlements before Roman times. It was the first industrialised city. This is not a history lesson, but if I were to send you a postcard of my Manchester, this is what it would include. So on the left here you can see Manchester Town Hall, which is one of the most iconic buildings in Manchester and considered to be one of the finest neo-Gothic architectural buildings in the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's wrapped up and closed because as part of a 7-year refurbishment. So I think we're 12 months into that. We may be a little bit more into it, but it's a magnificent building. And then in a completely different architectural style, which is typical of Manchester and a lot of Victorian cities in England, in the UK, I have to say, this kind of battle between the styles of Gothic and neoclassicism. And here you can see Manchester Art Gallery, which in fact was designed by Charles Barry, who also designed Highclere House. Now, if you know the other name by which Highclere House goes, put it in the comments box below. Manchester Art Gallery is where I was a guide, a volunteer guide for some 15 years. And as you all know, art is one of my passions, and so I've spent an awful lot of time in this building. And then down to the left, this area was part of my morning walk for 3 years around the Victorian architecture and the canals and so on, and the industrial buildings. And then we overlooked the Roman wall, you can see here to the left, marking the fact that Manchester has been populated since the 1st century, and in fact is mentioned in the Domesday Book. Now, of course, more recently, Manchester is famous for its music and its thriving culture scene, not to mention shopping and, of course, sport, where it boasts not one but 2 world-class famous football teams, Manchester United and Manchester City. Now, I think, as I said to you, from our apartment we overlooked the Roman gardens, and we had theatres just 2 minutes away, a cinema down at the end of the street, 2 of the best restaurants in Manchester within walking distance. I mean, what more could you possibly want? And all kinds of interesting things went on down on the grass that we overlooked from our apartment. Now, a caveat here, because I am obviously advocating living in the city. I'm saying to you, if you have the means and get the opportunity, do it. Tip the bucket. Try it. Nothing is set in stone. You could try it for 6 months, and if you didn't like it, move on. But there are some caveats, and certainly for us, it's important to have, I think, green space and trees in front of you. We had that, and in Manchester city centre that is precious. So we were very lucky in that sense. I didn't want to be any higher than 4 floors up. I know some people like to live way up on 35, not me. 4 floors is just about enough, and we were on the 3rd floor. 2 reasons really. I wouldn't feel comfortable living quite so high up, but also being on the 3rd floor out on the balcony, you still feel part of the world that's going on down below. So those would be 2 of my criteria, and we had that. And as I say, all kinds of weird and wonderful people came to, you've seen over the years, I've talked about it before, we've had people such as fire eaters practicing, tightrope walkers, model shoots, filming, Kylie Minogue, the Rag and Bone Man in concert, people practicing violins, yoga, all kinds of things happening down below, which is obviously very exciting. And so we've loved every minute of it. We've absolutely loved every minute of it, and it has made us feel part of a younger environment, because of course there are lots of young people around in the city, but there are quite a few of us in this time of life too. Now, if Manchester's going to want to attract people to live in the city, it's going to have to address this, because at the moment there are more 1-bedroom apartments being built speculatively to rent out to people who are going to come to the universities and then leave. Now, that doesn't form community, does it? One of the reasons we're leaving is because we couldn't find a 3-bedroomed apartment in the city that we could afford. There may be some, not many, but to find a 3-bedroomed apartment overlooking trees and grass, only on the 3rd or 4th floor, at a price that we could afford, was just not happening. So we were kind of priced out of Manchester, if you like. Also, we're leaving because we do enjoy the countryside, and although we overlook a small area of greenery, to get out into the countryside, we'd have to travel far out of the city to get somewhere where I like the experience of open space. So we needed to move because of that. Also, right now, I call it this time in my life, I need the security of my own home. And of course, we were renting. And I also wanted to decorate a place the way I want it decorated, for the way Mr. Kitchen and I, want to live. So those are the reasons that we were leaving. Now, there are downsides to living in the city, don't get me wrong. It's noisy, for sure. Sirens are the music of the city. But, you know, you get used to that. I promise you get used to that. Also, we had a train line in front of us, a train. In fact, there were 3 junctions of trains in front of us. And we loved that. I have to say, we loved it. And eventually you do not hear even the trains, which are not noisy anyway. So that, you know, that was okay for us. We were okay with that. The traffic can be bad and make it difficult to get in and out of the city. But I have to say, in Manchester, and I believe really in cities across the world, they are discouraging the motor car. Or wrongly, good or bad, that's what's happening. And although it's causing havoc at the moment in Manchester, they are putting bike lanes everywhere with the intention that you will be able to cycle all the way around the city, for example, with your 8-year-old child and feel perfectly safe doing it. So they're trying to take care of the traffic. Let me see, what else might you be concerned about? Yeah, clubs, bars, yes, antisocial behaviour. I can see that being an issue because of the bars and clubs and so on at night time. And we saw some of it, but you know, we were never, although we went to all the restaurants, obviously, we were never in the city after midnight. I've never wanted to be in the city after midnight. So we didn't really experience an awful lot of antisocial behaviour apart from during COVID. And I also have to say here that both the police and I've forgotten the name of them, but there's a number here that you can call for antisocial behaviour. They were incredibly helpful and the problem was solved, which was great. So that was my only real experience of antisocial behaviour in that sense. Something that did really irritate me, and I'm pleased to say they're sorting out, is the smell of weed. Made me heave. Now, in this country, it is still illegal, so it should not have been happening. Now, you might smoke weed, and that's your prerogative, of course, but you do need to know. It makes you smell. In fact, it stinks. I can't bear that smell, and I have a very sensitive nose. I can smell it from miles away. My apartment block, as we were leaving, in fact, started to really clamp down on it because, as I say, it is illegal in this country. So that's something that irritated me, but probably wouldn't irritate anybody else. I don't know. And that was it. So let me tell you, if you look at the priorities, your priorities, you want to feel safe, you need a concierge, you don't want to be too high, this is me. You don't want to be too high up, so 3 or 4 floors. You want space and greenery in front of you. You need a balcony so that you can step out into open air. Then I would say do it. In fact, you know, if we could have bought a 3-bedroomed house with those criteria met, we probably would have stayed in the city. And we might well be back. We might well be back. Now, so if any of those things that I've talked about put you off living in the city, you need to look again. Just have another look again, because living in the city has enriched our lives without a doubt. Because of all of the things I've mentioned and having all the things on the doorstep, it's made us more curious and more interested in other people's lives. And all the weirdos, and there are weirdos, if that's, you know, I'm a weirdo too, all of a sudden the weirdos become normal. And I should say eccentric. All the eccentricities of people who live in the city all of a sudden become the norm, and it makes you so much less judgmental and much more live and let live in that sense. So as I say, I think it's made us better people, and all the people who came to do odd things under my window, I'm going to miss them with all of my heart. So we are leaving, as I said, trying to downsize from a big house in the country to a 2-bedroom apartment in the city, a small one at that, did not work. We've now found our Goldilocks house, the house in the middle, which is bigger than the apartment but smaller than the house that the family home that we sold. So there you have it in a nutshell, and I have a question for you. Would you ever consider living in the city? Do you live in the city? If you do, just tell me what your experiences are. I'd love to know. And don't forget to watch the first video that's coming out on Saturday, called Happy Home, where I will be introducing you to my new home. And until then, remember that on the Happy Stuff and Fluff, we're getting happy, we're living longer, and growing younger. See you next time.